The reckoning, the evacuation of the Kreth core worlds began in what their historians would later call the Great Terror. Commander Vorthak, now Supreme Admiral of a fleet in retreat, watched his empire crumble not from invasion but from paranoia. No human ship had fired a single weapon. They didn't need to. The knowledge that humanity could appear anywhere, at any time, had shattered Kreth society more effectively than any bombardment. The first major colony to fall was Kreth Prime itself. Not to human attacks, but to its own population fleeing in panic. Reports had spread of human ships phasing through solid matter, of human soldiers who could walk through walls, of weapons that didn't destroy but simply made things cease to exist. Most of it was exaggeration, fear making monsters of shadows. But the Kreth didn't know what was real anymore. That uncertainty was more destructive than any fleet. Captain James Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Revenant, one of humanity's ghost ships. His mission was simple: be seen, disappear, let the Kreth imagination do the rest. The quantum phase drive hummed beneath his feet, ready to shift his vessel into a parallel dimension at a moment's notice. They had appeared near a Kreth supply depot, stayed just long enough to be detected, then vanished into the quantum foam. "Sir, the Kreth are abandoning the entire sector," his tactical officer reported. "That's the third one this week." Morrison nodded. The strategy was working perfectly. Humanity had learned from studying Earth's predators. The most successful hunters didn't chase their prey to exhaustion. They made their prey exhaust themselves with fear. On the abandoned Earth, now relocated to a pocket dimension humanity had discovered through their quantum research, the population watched the Kreth Empire collapse through quantum sensors. The planet itself had become a fortress outside normal space-time, untouchable and invisible. From there, humanity coordinated the most unusual conquest in galactic history. A conquest without invasion, without occupation, without traditional victory, just the slow, methodical dismantling of an empire through applied psychological pressure. The Kreth attempted to fight back, of course. Admiral Vorthak ordered strikes on human colonies, only to find them empty. The populations had been evacuated before the Kreth even decided to attack. It was as if humanity could see the future. In reality, they had simply learned to predict Kreth behavior patterns with near-perfect accuracy. 3,000 years of conquest had made the hegemony predictable. Humanity had turned that predictability into a weapon. Dr. Sarah Kim, humanity's leading xenopsychologist, had mapped the Kreth psychological profile down to the neuron. She knew how they would react to every stimulus, every threat, every gesture. Her models predicted their collapse not in years or months, but down to the day. The Kreth were following a script they didn't know they were reading, dancing to music only humanity could hear. 6 months after Brisbane, the Kreth hegemony controlled less than half their original territory. Not because humanity had conquered it, but because the Kreth had abandoned it. Fleeing from ghosts, running from shadows, they had retreated to what they believed were secure positions. But security was an illusion humanity wouldn't let them keep. The message came to every Kreth simultaneously, appearing not on screens, but in their minds. A technology humanity had developed by reverse engineering captured Kreth neural interfaces, improved with human innovation. The message was simple. You taught us that fear was a weapon. Thank you for the lesson. Brisbane remembers. Then came the names. 12 million names, one for each soul lost on Brisbane. The names appeared everywhere. The Kreth looked. In their food, in their dreams, written in the stars above their worlds. An endless litany of the dead that followed them wherever they ran. The psychological toll was devastating. Kreth soldiers refused to sleep. Officers resigned in droves. Entire fleets mutinied rather than face an enemy they couldn't see, couldn't understand, couldn't fight. The other species of the galaxy watched in awe and terror. The Kreth hegemony, which had seemed invincible, was being destroyed by a species that had barely achieved faster than light travel 2 centuries ago, and humanity was doing it without firing a shot. The message to the galaxy was clear. Earth could be pushed, but when Earth pushed back, It did so with the patience and inevitability of geological time. Ambassador Chen met with the Galactic Council on neutral ground, a space station orbiting a black hole at the galaxy's edge. The assembled representatives of 100 species waited for her to speak. Many feared humanity would become the new hegemony, replacing Kreth tyranny with human domination. Chen's words surprised them all. "We want nothing from you," she said simply. "No tribute, no submission, no alliance unless freely offered. We will return to our space and continue our development. But know this: Brisbane's children died so that yours might live free. We have broken the Kreth not for conquest but for justice. And we will watch, always watch. Should any species repeat the Kreth's mistakes, they will learn why Earth's silence is not weakness, but preparation." The Kreth exodus continued for years. Every time they thought they had found safety, human ships would appear. Not attacking, just observing. The message was clear. There was nowhere in the galaxy they could run where humanity couldn't find them. The hegemony dissolved not in war, but in despair. Their subject species reclaimed their worlds. Their empire became a cautionary tale. Commander Vorthak, in his final transmission before disappearing into uncharted space, sent a warning to all who would listen. "We thought we were teaching humanity fear. Instead, we taught them how to be the thing that others fear. We created our own demons, and now they follow us into the dark. Learn from our mistake. When Earth goes silent, it is not planning surrender. It is planning something far worse. It is planning to win." 10 years after Brisbane, the galaxy had achieved an unprecedented peace, not through unity or understanding, but through fear of awakening Earth's silence again. Human ships patrolled the void, not as conquerors but as watchers. They interfered with nothing, demanded nothing. But their presence was a constant reminder. Humanity had learned to weaponize patience itself. The children of Brisbane were memorialized on every human world. Their names became a prayer, a promise, and a warning. "We remember," humanity whispered to the stars. "We always remember. And we are always watching." The Kreth still run, deeper into the void, fleeing from shadows that might or might not be human ships. They will run forever because humanity has ensured they will never know peace again. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Some species fought with weapons, some with economics, some with diplomacy. But humanity fought with something far more terrifying. They fought with the promise of consequences that would echo through generations. They fought with memory that never faded. They fought with patience that never ended. And somewhere in the quantum foam between dimensions, Earth waited, silent, watching, ready. The last species that made Earth go silent was still running. They would always be running, because humanity had taught them that some mistakes could never be outrun, only eternally fled. The galaxy knew peace, but it was a peace built on the understanding that Earth's silence was not empty. It was full of terrible promise. In the end, humanity had won not through strength or technology, but through becoming the embodiment of consequence itself. They had transformed from prey to predator to something beyond either. They had become the universe's reminder that actions have reactions, that cruelty has cost, and that some species should never be pushed to silence. Because when Earth goes silent, it's not giving up, it's getting ready. And what it's getting ready for is worse than any conventional war. It's preparing to become the thing that makes monsters run. The Kreth learned this too late. The galaxy learned it just in time. And humanity? Humanity learned that sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies. It's in becoming the reason they never stop running. The provocation. The Kreth hegemony had ruled through fear for 3,000 years. Their method was brutally efficient. They would arrive at a new system, demonstrate their power by destroying the smallest inhabited world, then accept the immediate surrender of the remaining planets. No species had ever required a second demonstration. Until they met humanity. Commander Vorthak stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, studying the blue marble that humans called Earth through the viewport. Such a small world to house such stubborn creatures. The initial contact had gone exactly as planned. His fleet of 200 warships had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, weapons powered and shields raised. The standard message of submission had been transmitted on all frequencies. The humans had responded with something unexpected. Not surrender, not defiance, but a question. Why? They had asked. Simply that. One word transmitted from their united Earth Command. Vorthak had been genuinely puzzled. In 3 millennia of conquest, no species had asked why. They had begged, threatened, bargained, or surrendered, but none had sought to understand the purpose behind their subjugation. The hegemony's answer was delivered in the traditional manner. The colony world of Brisbane, orbiting Proxima Centauri, housed 12 million humans. It was a thriving agricultural world, feeding much of humanity's expanding presence in the stars. The Kreth selected it precisely because it was beloved but not essential. The perfect target for a demonstration that would break spirits without destroying infrastructure they would later claim. The attack lasted exactly 1 hour. Plasma bombardment from orbit turned fertile fields to glass. Cities burned. The screams of the dying were broadcast on all human channels, as was standard Kreth procedure. They wanted every human on every world to hear what resistance would bring. When the hour ended, Brisbane was silent. 12 million voices extinguished to make a point. Then something unprecedented happened. Earth went quiet. Not just Earth, but every human colony, every ship, every space station. The constant chatter of human communications that had filled subspace for over 2 centuries simply stopped. It was as if the entire species had collectively held its breath. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the deepest bunker beneath Mount Everest, surrounded by the combined leadership of humanity. The screens before them showed the burning remnant of Brisbane. No one spoke. No one needed to. The decision had already been made long ago, protocols established during humanity's first ventures into space. They had always known this day might come. Execute Protocol Silent Storm, Chen said quietly. Across human space, the order propagated through quantum-encrypted channels. Factories that had appeared to produce consumer goods revealed hidden manufacturing lines. Civilian ships jettisoned false bulkheads to reveal military-grade weapons. Scientists who had spent decades researching theoretical physics began implementing technologies they had secretly perfected. The Kreth waited for surrender. Days passed, then weeks. Their demands for communication grew increasingly frustrated. Why wouldn't the humans respond? Every other species had capitulated within hours of seeing their first world burn. The silence was wrong. It felt like the pause before a storm. Intelligence Officer Kalth approached Commander Vorthak with concerning reports. Human colonies were moving, not fleeing but repositioning. Asteroid mining operations had increased their output by 300%. Energy readings from Earth suggested massive industrial activation. Yet still, no communication, no demands, no pleas, nothing. On Earth. The work continued in silence. Humanity had learned from history. They had studied every conquered species, analyzed every Kreth victory. The pattern was clear. The hegemony relied on psychological dominance. They expected certain responses planned for specific reactions, so humanity gave them none of those things. Instead, they did something no species had done before. They adapted. Dr. Marcus Webb stood before the assembled engineers in the Luna shipyards. Behind him, the skeletal frame of humanity's new fleet took shape. Ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Not designed for conventional warfare, but for something far more terrifying. Persistence. The Kreth expect us to fight them where they are strong, Webb explained to his team. In open battle, with clear objectives and traditional tactics. We won't give them that satisfaction. We're going to do what humans do best. We're going to endure. We're going to adapt. And we're going to make them run until they understand that some species should never be pushed to silence. The quantum tunneling drive was humanity's secret weapon. Developed in hidden laboratories over 50 years, it allowed ships to move through space in ways that defied conventional understanding. Not faster than light, but beside it, through dimensions the Kreth hadn't even theorized. Every human ship was being retrofitted with these drives. Every weapon was being modified. With quantum phase technology, humanity was preparing for a war that wouldn't be fought in space. But in the nightmares of their enemies. 3 months after Brisbane burned, the Kreth hegemony detected the first anomaly. A human ship appeared inside their defensive perimeter, around their forward command base. Not approaching from space, but simply existing where it hadn't been before. The ship broadcast no message, fired no weapons. It simply watched. When the Kreth moved to intercept, it vanished. Not into hyperspace, but into nothing, as if it had never existed at all. More ships began appearing. Around Kreth colonies, near their supply lines, inside their most secure systems. Always watching, never attacking. The psychological impact was immediate. Kreth soldiers reported inability to sleep, constant paranoia, the feeling of being hunted by something they couldn't understand. The predators were becoming prey, and they didn't know how to process the reversal. Commander Vorthak ordered his fleet to advance on Earth. If the humans wouldn't surrender, he would glass their homeworld and be done with it. But as his armada approached Sol, they found something impossible. Earth was gone, not destroyed, not hidden, simply absent. Where the blue planet should have orbited, there was only empty space. The other planets remained, following their ancient paths around the sun, but Earth itself had vanished. The implications sent ripples of fear through the Kreth command structure. How could a species move an entire planet? Where had they taken it? And more terrifyingly, if they could move Earth, what else could they do? The questions multiplied, each more disturbing than the last. The hegemony had conquered through fear. Now they were learning what it felt like to be afraid. Then the real horror began. Kreth colonies started reporting strange phenomena. Children's toys would move when no one was watching. Shadows would fall in impossible directions. Whispers in languages that didn't exist would echo through empty corridors. The humans weren't attacking their bodies or their worlds. They were attacking their minds, their sense of reality itself. A message finally came from humanity, not through normal channels, but appearing simultaneously in the dreams of every Kreth in the galaxy. It showed Brisbane burning, 12 million, voices crying out. Then it showed every Kreth world, every Kreth city, every Kreth child. The meaning was clear. Humanity knew where they all were. Humanity could reach them all. And humanity would never forget. The Kreth hegemony, masters of psychological warfare for 3 millennia, finally understood. They had taught humanity the power of fear. But humans had learned the lesson too well. They hadn't just mastered fear. They had transformed it into something else entirely. They had turned it into inevitability. The Kreth had created their own executioners, and now those executioners were coming. Not quickly, not directly, but with the patient certainty of entropy itself.